What if everything you believe about Jesus is a lie? What if the face you've worshipped your entire life wasn't even his? Would you dare to keep watching, knowing that what you're about to hear might shatter your faith and rebuild something much deeper? This is not just another alien story. This is not another "I saw a light in the sky" video. This is about something that happened in the real world, to a man just like you, broken, alone, skeptical, until a single act of kindness changed everything. Because when I helped a wounded alien in the middle of nowhere, I wasn't expecting anything in return. I wasn't looking for proof of God or a miracle. I just felt sorry for something that looked more lost than I was. But what he gave me in return was the truth. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. He didn't come to destroy my beliefs. He came to show me where they came from, who distorted them, why they were manipulated, and how much power they were designed to hide from me and from you. The truth he revealed wasn't a theory. It wasn't a guess. It was something his species had recorded, observed, and protected for over 2,000 years. I saw something that no priest, no church, no theologian has ever shown. I saw the real Jesus, not the one painted in cathedrals, not the one sold on TV. The man, the teacher, the activator of power you were never supposed to become. They told you to look up to heaven. They never told you God was already inside you. Told you Jesus was the only one. They never told you he said, "You will do greater things than I have done." They made you pray when you were meant to create. And now I ask you, what would you do if an alien gave you the key to all of this? If he showed you the real face of Jesus, not just his appearance, but his energy, his purpose, his mission? What if this so-called alien knew more about our Messiah than our own Bible? No, I'm not crazy. And no, this isn't a metaphor. This is a memory, a moment, a message that was buried for 2 millennia and is now rising through the least expected way. You may want to stop watching. You may feel uncomfortable. You may hear a voice in your head screaming, "This is blasphemy." But another voice, the quieter one, the one they told you to ignore, that voice will recognize the truth in what you're about to witness, because something inside you already knows. You've always felt it. That church didn't tell you everything. Something about your prayers felt incomplete. That your soul wasn't designed for begging, but for manifesting. So if you've ever looked at the stars and wondered, if you've ever prayed and felt nothing, if you've ever questioned why you're still waiting for a miracle that never came, then stay. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to show you, what he showed me, will not only change your view of Jesus, it will change how you see yourself. So before I take you further, before I reveal what that being showed me, the moment I saw Jesus like I never imagined, I want to ask you something. If any part of this has stirred something inside you, if even one sentence made your heart beat a little faster, or made your skin crawl not with fear, but with truth, then don't stay silent. Leave a comment. Tell me what you feel. Not what you think, but what you feel. Because the mind will try to reject this, but your soul knows what's real. When you share your thoughts, writing under a video, you're activating energy. You're helping others feel less alone, and you're letting this message echo far beyond this screen. So take 1 second. Write what's rising in your chest right now. Even if it's just one word. I feel it. I'm waking up. I'm ready. And if you're still here, still listening, that's not by chance. Like this video, not because of an algorithm, but because you're choosing to say, "This story matters. This message needs to be seen." Subscribe. Not for me, but for you. Because what's coming next is something you were meant to hear. Something that was hidden from you on purpose. And once it's revealed, you'll never look at prayer, Jesus, or your own life the same way again. Are you ready? Let's continue. I know what you're thinking. This sounds impossible, too perfect, too spiritual, too sci-fi. But the truth is, sometimes reality doesn't ask for your permission before it unfolds. It just lands in your backyard. Happened to me. That's what. I didn't ask for it. I wasn't ready for it. And yet, I was the one chosen to see something the world had forgotten. It all began on a stormy night, a kind of storm that doesn't just soak the earth, but shakes something inside you. Lightning had shattered the silence, and I remember lying there, staring at the ceiling, wondering why I still felt so hollow. 62 years on this planet, and still, I didn't know what I was doing here. Then, that sound came. Not thunder, something heavier. Not wind, deeper, like metal slamming into dirt. I should have stayed in bed. Should have ignored it like all the other strange noises out there. But something pulled me. A quiet force, like the kind that makes a man stand up when there's nothing left to stand for. I walked out into the night, past the trees swaying like nervous witnesses, and saw it. A shape, metallic, smooth, curved, like it had been molded by sound instead of hands, and next to it, something else. Someone. Like anything I'd ever seen, and yet, he didn't scare me. Not the way I thought he would. His body was taller, more fluid than human, his skin, a shade between gray and silver, his eyes, completely black, but not empty, not dead. They were alive, aware, and focused on me. And then, he spoke, not through his mouth, through my mind. I won't hurt you. I just need help. Every part of me screamed to run, but every part of me that was tired of running stayed. I saw his ship, damaged, open panels, faint blue light, flickering like a dying breath. He said he couldn't repair it alone, that he had scanned the area, and of all the nearby structures, my old barn was the only place isolated enough to hide the craft. He saw my tools, my hands, my history of fixing broken things, and maybe that was it. Maybe the universe decided that because I spent my life fixing other people's messes, it was time I saw what needed fixing inside me. So I helped him. No questions, no drama, just one man and one being from somewhere too far to name, working side by side to bring something impossible back to life. But what I didn't expect was the conversation. While I patched fiber and sealed cracks with tools far too primitive for the task, he spoke about the universe, about God, about what we humans call heaven, and why we've misunderstood everything. He said, "The heavens you look up to don't exist the way you think. God is not up there. God is not far. God is not watching. He is within." I paused, looked at him. "So, you're saying heaven isn't real?" "No," he said, with something that almost resembled empathy. "I'm saying heaven isn't a place. It's a frequency, a state of being, not above, but inside." And then came the question that had been burning inside me since childhood. "Do you know Jesus?" He didn't even flinch. "We observed him," he said. "We recorded him. Your planet was at a spiritual crossroad 2,000 of your years ago. We came to witness how one of your kind accessed the universal field, the source, what you call God. He accessed it fully and tried to teach others to do the same." I was shaking. "You're saying Jesus wasn't just divine, he was awakened?" He remembered who he was and tried to remind the rest of you. That was the night everything started to unravel. He showed me a holographic projection, more than a hologram, a memory encoded in energy, a moment where Jesus stood in a small circle of followers, his eyes filled with fire, his voice muted, but his intention clear. He pointed to the sky, then to his chest, then to theirs. "The kingdom of God is within you." The alien paused the vision. This is one of the most important things he ever said, and it was buried under rituals, institutions, and fear. And then he did something else. He offered me proof. "Choose something simple," he said. "A number, a symbol, something random but meaningful to you." I chose 47, my ex-wife's favorite number. I hadn't seen years. "Now," he said, "hold this crystal. Focus. Don't ask to see the number. Feel gratitude as if you already have." That's how Jesus manifested. Not through request, but through resonance. I felt ridiculous, like a child pretending, but I did it anyway. I closed my eyes, held the crystal, and imagined seeing the number 47 on a wall, on a receipt, on a license plate. And I whispered in my mind, "Thank you for this sign." The next day, I saw it 5 times. An old sticker, a headline under my car trunk, a receipt total, a radio station, a license plate beside mine. 5 times, in under 6 hours. Coincidence? Maybe. But something inside me knew I had tapped into something real. And if a thought could create a number, what else could it create? That's when the alien said, Jesus didn't teach people to worship him. He taught them to become what he remembered they already were, children of the source. I want you to breathe that in for a second. Not followers, not beggars, creators. Not because they're special, but because they're connected, like you, right now, even if you don't believe it yet. And maybe you're watching this, thinking I've lost my mind. Or maybe, just maybe, a quiet part of you is remembering. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like your prayers go unanswered? Have you ever said, God, are you even listening? Maybe the question was never about God hearing you. Maybe the real question is, are you aligned enough to hear Him back? Because the voice of God doesn't shout, it resonates. And the truth that Alien showed me, the face of Jesus, not the beard, not the robe, but the presence. It was unlike anything I'd ever felt. Jesus didn't heal people by magic. He didn't multiply fish and bread to impress crowds. He accessed a frequency so pure that reality bent itself to match His belief. And we were told to worship Him for that, when He was trying to teach us how to do it too. And now I turn this over to you. Has any part of this felt like a memory, not a discovery? Do you feel like you've always known this, somewhere deep, but never had the words? If so, tell me. Not for the algorithm, for the others watching, the ones like you. Write in the comments, I remember, or the kingdom is within, or even just 47. Let the others know they're not alone in this feeling. And if this message found you at the right time, like the number found me, then you already know what to do next, because we're just getting started. And what's coming will change everything. He didn't fly away the next day like I expected. The ship was working, yes, I could feel it humming like a living heart inside my barn, but the alien stayed, said there was more I needed to know, and that if he left before I fully understood it, I would fall right back into the same patterns that created my suffering in the first place. At first, I didn't want to hear it. I was overwhelmed. The number 47 was already showing up everywhere, like a whisper I couldn't shut out. On receipts, on clocks, in the radio station numbers, license plates. Even the electricity bill that arrived that morning was $47 exactly. I was starting to feel watched, not by him, by the universe itself. And that was terrifying, because if I had truly manifested that number as he claimed, then what else had I created without knowing? What about the divorce, the heart problems, the years of loneliness? What if I wasn't cursed, but just misaligned? That's when the real resistance kicked in. The guilt, the shame, the quiet voice in my head that said, if you were really the creator of your life, then you created every heartbreak, every failure, every prayer that went unanswered. So I avoided him. I made coffee. I stayed on the porch. I tried to pretend everything was normal, but it wasn't, because once you see, you can't unsee. And eventually, he called to me, not out loud, but through that same deep, silent voice that rang like a memory inside my... Frank, come to the barn. There's one more thing I need to show you. I hesitated. Then I went. Inside, the light from the ship bathed the room in a glow that didn't quite touch the walls. It was soft, like moonlight, without a source. He stood near the control panel, not moving, waiting for me to be ready. What is it? I asked, already on edge. Without a word, he touched the side of the panel. The light shifted, and then I saw me, a holographic projection. Scenes from my life, but replays. Not vivid, real. Me at 25, yelling during an argument I thought I had forgotten. Me at 35, getting fired, blaming my boss. Me at 47, alone in a hospital bed, crying and asking God, why? I felt sick. What is this? I said, my voice breaking. This is the pattern, he replied. This is the frequency you've been broadcasting your entire life. I didn't choose this, I snapped. I didn't want this. No, he said gently, but you fed it. You repeated it. You believed in it more than you believed in your power to change it. I wanted to collapse, hide, vanish. You don't understand, I whispered. I tried. I prayed. I asked for help every day. I know, he said, but every word you spoke came from fear, from lack, from unworthiness. You weren't praying. You were declaring what you feared, and the universe listened. He paused, letting that sink in. Every thought is a command. Every emotion is an amplifier. Every belief is a... I turned away, ashamed. He continued. Jesus didn't say, please God, heal this man. He said, thank you. He declared wholeness, as if it had already happened. He didn't beg. He aligned. Something cracked inside me. You're saying, I've been doing it all wrong? You've been doing what you were taught, he said. And what you were taught was designed to keep you small. My knees buckled. I sat on the floor, dizzy. All those years of asking for help, what if I'd been reinforcing my powerlessness instead? What if Jesus had never wanted to be worshipped, but remembered? What if his real message was buried under centuries of ritual, guilt, and fear, not by accident, but by design? And what if the church didn't get it wrong, but made sure you did? He knelt beside me, his hand long and strange, touched my shoulder. "You are not being punished," he said. "You're being awakened." And that word, awakened, rang through my body like thunder under my skin. Then, what do I do? How do I stop being a victim? "One thought at a time," he said. "One belief at a time. You observe, you catch, you correct. That is your work now." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every thought that crossed my mind, I questioned it. Every self-pitying memory, I interrupted it. Every time I heard myself say, "I can't," I replaced it with, "What if I can?" It wasn't easy, but it was something, a beginning. The next morning, I woke up at 5:47 a.m. No alarm, just that number again. Whisper from the universe. "I'm still here. I'm still listening. Keep going." I went back to the barn. The alien was already there. This time, he had 3 crystals in his hand. "These will help you," he said, "until your frequency is strong enough to stand on its own." He handed them to me. One for my pocket, one for under my pillow, one to hold during morning meditation. They amplify emotion, which means they amplify whatever you focus on. I nodded. "And if I focus on the wrong things, they'll amplify that too." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't magic. This was discipline, intention, emotional mastery. Jesus wasn't supernatural. He was in alignment, and he was trying to teach us how to do the same. We just never listened. Or maybe we did, and someone made sure we forgot. So now, I'm remembering, piece by piece, moment by moment. And maybe you are too. Maybe some part of you, buried under years of sermons and shame, is rising again. Maybe you've starting to realize more than survival, more than obedience, more than blind faith. Maybe you're ready to wake up. If anything I said in this part resonated, if it triggered something deep, something raw, something real, tell me. Don't scroll away in silence. Leave a comment, even just one word. Remembering, awakening, or just, "I feel it." Because others are watching too, and your voice might be the one that gives them permission to feel the same. If this message found you, it wasn't an accident, and what's coming next, you were meant to hear. The next few days felt like living between 2 worlds. Outside, the wind still rustled the trees, the coffee still brewed the same way, and the clock still ticked forward like it always had. But inside me, something had cracked open. Something I had kept sealed for decades, maybe my entire life. It wasn't enlightenment, not yet. It was more like a pressure building in the center of my chest, a knowing that didn't have words, a silent whisper from something ancient, saying, "You've always been more." I carried the crystal in my pocket like it was a heartbeat, warm, pulsing, familiar. Sometimes I'd forget it was there until I'd feel it vibrate faintly, not from any device or mechanism, but from my own thoughts. When I spiraled into fear or anger, it dimmed. When I focused on gratitude, even if forced, it lit up again, subtly but surely. The alien, who never gave me a name, stayed close. Hovered. Not in a way more like a mentor who knew exactly when to be silent and exactly when to interrupt your illusions with a truth you didn't ask for. One morning, as I sat on the porch holding that crystal and watching the sunrise, he appeared beside me, as if he'd been standing there the whole time. He wasn't just a presence anymore. He was becoming a mirror. "You're changing," he said softly. "Your frequency is stabilizing." I didn't fully understand what that meant, but I felt it. My dreams were different, not just vivid. They were messages, symbols, scenes from my childhood I hadn't thought about in decades. Moments where I'd decided I wasn't enough, that I wasn't lovable, that I didn't matter unless I was fixing something for someone else. "You've spent your whole life trying to earn what was already yours," he said later that day. "That's the human sickness." What is? Believing you have to prove your worth before you can receive love. I didn't argue. I couldn't. He was right. But something was still bothering me. If Jesus really taught all this, why didn't it last? Why did it all get buried under guilt and fear? He looked at me for a long time. Then he walked toward the barn and activated the projection again. But this time, it wasn't Jesus healing the sick. It wasn't him speaking to crowds or multiplying bread. It was something else, something private. Jesus was sitting with a small group, 5 or 6. No robes, no ceremonial tone, just a man trying to explain something no one was ready to hear. He pointed to the sky, then to his chest, then to theirs, again and again. He moved his hands in circles, touching the space between them, the air, the earth. His eyes were soft but urgent. He was trying to explain unity, the alien said, that there's no separation between you and God, between you and each other. But people like separation, I muttered. It makes things easier to control. Yes, that's why they took his teachings and turned them into, obedience. I watched as Jesus reached out and touched someone in the group, not as a healer, as a reminder, a transmitter of certainty. And then he said something. I couldn't hear the words, but I felt them. It wasn't a sentence. It was a frequency. You are already divine. I turned to the alien. So, the miracles weren't the point? No, the miracles were the evidence, but the teaching was always, you can do this too. Something in me broke wide open. I had spent 60 years waiting for a rescue from God, from medicine, from fate, all while the map had been inside me the whole time. But we were never taught how, I said. Because if you knew, he replied, you'd never beg again, and people in power depend on your begging. He was right. Every sermon I remembered had one common thread. We were broken, and only someone else, someone more holy, more chosen, could save us. And yet, here I was, feeling what I hadn't felt since I was a boy. Hope, not hope happen that something might, but hope in me, in the field, in the source that lived in all things, including my own breath. That night, I practiced. No begging, no asking. I sat with my eyes closed, crystal in hand, and said thank you, not for what I wanted, but for what I knew was already mine. If I aligned enough to receive it, peace, healing, connection, flow. I said thank you until I felt it in my skin, until the warmth spread up my spine and across my chest like sunlight from inside. And the next morning, something strange happened. A call. A friend I hadn't spoken to in years. I don't know why, he said, but I woke up thinking about you. You still fix up engines, right? I've got some old stuff that needs looking at. A job. Nothing huge, nothing life-changing, but it felt like movement, energy responding, a seed sprouting, a reality shifting. I hung up and looked at the crystal in my hand. You saw that coming, didn't you? I asked aloud, and without a sound, I felt the alien's answer in my mind. It's not about seeing the future. It's about trusting that you're creating it. The real miracle wasn't the job offer. It was the shift inside me. The evidence that something was beginning to work because I was beginning to work differently. The proof wasn't in magic. It was in awareness, intention, emotional alignment. It was in remembering that every word, every thought, every feeling is a frequency, and reality always, always responds. If any of this is starting to resonate with you, if you're feeling that quiet truth stirring under your skin, don't ignore it. It means you're waking up. And if you've made it this far with me, if something inside you is whispering, yes, I knew this, then leave a sign below. Write, I am remembering, or my frequency is rising, or even no more begging. Every time you comment, you're anchoring this truth deeper. You're helping others feel less alone. You're letting this message echo louder, not for algorithms, but for awakening. And what I'm about to share next, you won't be ready for it, but maybe that's exactly why you need to hear it. It wasn't always smooth after that. You don't wake up from 60 years of being asleep without hitting the wall of your old self now and then. The next few days, they tested me. The high I'd felt after that call, the warmth in my chest during meditation, even the glimmer of hope in my thoughts. It all started to fade when life crept back in with its sharp little teeth. The water heater broke. The bank account dipped below what I was comfortable with. A sharp pain in my chest reminded me of the hospital visit I thought was behind me. And with each little setback, the voice in my head, that ancient familiar voice of the victim, started whispering again, see? It's all just coincidence. You can't manifest anything. You're just a lonely old man talking to shadows. You imagined the number. You imagined the healing. You imagined the hope. And for a moment, I believed it. Stopped meditating for a day. Then, 2. I didn't carry the crystal. I left it by the sink like it didn't matter. I avoided the barn, because sometimes, when the truth starts to rise in you, it scares you more than the lie ever did. Because if this was all true, if my thoughts really did shape my world, if my beliefs were blueprinting my life, then I couldn't blame anyone else anymore. Not my ex-wife, not my bad luck, not God, not fate, just me. And that kind of responsibility can feel heavier. I sat in the dark one night, rain falling like whispers on the window pane, and I spoke out loud to no one. I don't know if I can do this. There was no reply, just silence. But silence is funny. When you're present enough, it speaks. And in that silence, I didn't hear words. I felt a memory of Jesus in that projection, sitting with people who didn't understand him. Not crowds, not applause, just confusion, doubt, resistance. He wasn't glowing. He wasn't floating. Supernatural. He looked tired, human, alone, trying to explain a truth that no one wanted to carry, because it meant they couldn't worship their way out of life anymore. They'd have to take ownership. They'd have to activate. And I understood then why his teachings were buried. It wasn't a conspiracy. It was fear. It's easier to kneel than to create, easier to ask than to believe, easier to wait for miracles than to become one. The next morning, I walked back into the barn. The ship was that soft internal glow. The alien, still nameless, stood by the panel, waiting, not judging, just present. I messed up, I said. You resisted, he corrected. It's part of the process. I stopped believing. No, you stopped remembering. He stepped toward me, slowly. What you're learning isn't information, he said. It's restoration. You're not becoming someone new. You're shedding the layers that were placed on you. By culture, by religion, by pain. Crystal. I looked down still on the table. Then why does it feel so hard? Because the illusion is comfortable. It's familiar. And familiarity can feel like truth, even when it's a cage. He motioned to the panel again. Another projection appeared. This time, it was me. Not past me, present me. Sitting alone, head in my hands, a loop of my thoughts echoing aloud. I never get a break. I don't deserve better. It's too late for me. The holographic version of myself sat in that energy, dim and heavy. And beside him appeared another version. Same man, same face, but standing tall, eyes closed, hands open, silent, radiating. What's this? I asked. 2 possible timelines, he said. Both exist. Both are yours. The one you feed becomes your life. I stared at the image for a long time. Then I reached for the crystal. As soon as it touched my skin, something shifted. Not because it was magic, because I chose. That night, I sat again in stillness. But this time, I didn't try to get it right. And with every exhale, I imagined letting go of one belief that no longer served me. I'm not too old. I'm not broken. I'm not powerless. And with every inhale, I invited something ancient to return. I am remembering. I am connected. I am the prayer, not the beggar. The feeling wasn't a rush. It wasn't fireworks. It was quiet, subtle, but real, like something in me finally whispered back, yes. The next morning, something happened. Not external, internal. Eyes and saw my room. I opened my differently, not cleaner, not brighter, just alive. The light through the curtains felt like it had shape, weight, intelligence. The air moved through the room like a soft song. I felt the field, the one Jesus tapped into, the one this being spoke about, the one I had always been a part of, but never knew how to feel. It was everywhere. It was in me. And when I stepped outside, I didn't look up at the sky asking for help. I looked within, and I said thank you for the pain that cracked me open. Thank you for the silence that forced me to listen. Thank you for the number 47, for the alien, for the truth hidden in plain sight. And if you're still here, still listening, still reading, maybe you've felt it too. Maybe you've been chasing something out there that's been living inside you the whole time. If any of this stirred something in you, a memory, a thought, a vibration you can't quite explain, let me know. But don't just say, I agree. Let your comment be your declaration. Write something that speaks from your soul. I'm done begging. I'm choosing alignment. I am remembering who I am. Your words matter. Your voice matters. And when you share, you don't just help yourself. You become the reflection someone else was waiting for. And trust me, what's coming next will shake the very foundation of everything you thought you knew. There was one question I hadn't asked him yet. Not out loud, not even consciously, but circling me since the day I helped him up from the dirt, since the day I saw the ship, the light, and the truth behind Jesus's words. That question was simple, but dangerous. Why me? Why show this to me? Why reveal something this huge, this sacred, to someone so ordinary? I wasn't a prophet. I wasn't spiritual. I hadn't meditated a single day in my life before this. I was just a man who fixed broken engines and occasionally yelled at the sky when the world felt too heavy. And yet, I was the one holding this truth now, the one seeing what priests, preachers, and philosophers had missed. Or, ignored. So I asked him. It was nighttime again. We stood outside the barn. The air was still. The stars looked closer somehow, like they were leaning in. I turned to him. Why me? He didn't answer right away. He looked up at the stars. Then he said, because you were empty enough to receive. At first, I thought he was insulting me, but I realized he wasn't. He meant it. You had no belief system to protect, he continued. No pride built on dogma. No fear of being wrong. Just emptiness. And that made you ready. He turned to me. Truth doesn't enter the loud. It enters the still. I swallowed hard. There was a weight in those words. Not guilt, but responsibility. And then he showed me the final vision. One, he said, I wasn't ready for before, but I was now. He placed the crystal in the center of the barn floor. The ship dimmed to near darkness. Then light poured up from the crystal in a spiral of colors and frequencies, vibrating in patterns that felt like they had their own language. And then the image appeared. Not Jesus this time, not the past. Me, but not the me from this lifetime. A version of me from somewhere else. I know how insane that sounds, but it wasn't a dream. It wasn't imagination. I saw myself, or what felt like my essence, in another form, a different body, different dimension, a being made of light, yet held in form. And in that vision, wasn't lost. I wasn't broken. I wasn't questioning. I was guiding others, teaching, activating, transmitting. And then I saw Jesus, but not the version I'd known from paintings or movies. He wasn't white. He wasn't dressed in robes. He wasn't speaking in parables. He looked almost normal, but there was something behind his eyes, something that felt older than time, but also completely present. He wasn't preaching. He was demonstrating. He touched a person's chest, and their body lit up like a tuning fork hit perfectly in resonance. And that's when the alien whispered something that shifted everything. Jesus didn't come to show you what he could do. He came to show you what you had forgotten. In that moment, the vision changed. It wasn't just a memory. It became a feeling. I felt the frequency Jesus was emitting. It wasn't love as we define it. It was unconditional coherence, a pure alignment between thought, emotion, energy, and source. He didn't need to say anything. People healed just by standing near him because he carried no resistance, no contradiction between his inner and outer worlds. And here's the part that shattered me. The alien turned to me and said, "This frequency still lives in your DNA." I blinked. What? It was activated once in him, and now it lives as a code in all of you, buried, dormant, but alive. I shook my head. Then why don't we feel it? Because you were taught to doubt it before you could ever sense it. He paused, then added, you were taught to outsource your power to systems, religions, leaders. You were told to fear the divine within you. And then he said something I will never forget. Every knee shall bow, not because you are weak, but because something inside you is remembering it was never separate. I felt my knees hit the barn floor, not in worship, but in recognition. I wept, not because I was sad, but because something ancient in me was finally seen. Not by the alien, by me. And in that moment, I felt silence louder than anything I'd ever known. Not absence, presence. And in that silence, I remembered the real meaning of prayer. Not words, not pleading, not repetition. Resonance. Prayer is a tuning, not a request. It is the aligning of frequency with desired reality. It is saying thank you for a miracle before it arrives, because you've already embodied it energetically. It is what Jesus meant when he said, "Believe you have received, and it will be yours." He wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was delivering a biological key, one that could override matter itself. And we turned it into superstition. We buried it in golden temples and holy books, never realizing the kingdom was waiting in the space between our ribs. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in stillness for hours, holding the crystal, feeling my cells rearrange, not figuratively, literally. I could feel my heartbeat slow, my breath deepen, my skin tingle with a current I didn't recognize, but didn't fear. I was shifting, and I knew this wasn't just about me. It was about all of us. This is why the truth was hidden. Not because it wasn't beautiful, but because it was too powerful. Because a world of awakened creators cannot be controlled. Because you cannot enslave those who remember they are divine. And maybe, just maybe, that's what scared them the most. If this reached something inside you, if your hands are warm, or your chest feels different, or your breath just slowed without you thinking about it, Don't just sit with it. Speak it. Write it in the comments. Say something only your soul would understand. Maybe it's, I carry the code. Prayer is resonance. I remember the frequency. Let those words echo beyond this screen, into the field, into others, into the grid that's waking up right now through people like you. You're not here by accident, and what's about to happen next is the moment you've been waiting for your entire life. I don't know how long I stayed in that state. Time stopped making sense after that night. Not because the hours blurred together, but because I stopped measuring reality by clocks and started sensing it through vibration. The barn became something else, a temple without walls, a classroom beyond curriculum. And the alien, he became a voice, not just a being, a bridge, a reminder. Each day, he would show me pieces of a map, not of the stars, but of the human soul, not drawn in ink, but coded in light and memory. He said that before humans could speak language, they spoke frequency, that before stories were told, truth was felt. He said, your ancient ancestors didn't worship gods. They interacted with the field. They sang to it. They danced into alignment with it. I asked him, what happened? When did we forget? He tilted his head in that way he always did when preparing to show me something painful. And then the projection came alive again. But this time, it wasn't Jesus. It was centuries after. I saw rooms filled with men in Fivadium robes, seated at long wooden tables, scrolls open in front of them. They weren't meditating. They were editing, choosing, erasing. We keep this part, one of them said, but remove that phrase. Too dangerous. What about this line? Another asked. The kingdom is within you. A silence. Then a voice answered, we can't take it out, but we can bury it, surround it with obedience, frame it as metaphor. That way, they'll never look inward. And that's when I understood. The truth wasn't stolen. It was repackaged. The teachings of Jesus weren't lost. They were diluted, wrapped in ritual and hierarchy, until people forgot they were more than followers, until they feared the very power they carried. You were taught, the alien said, that salvation is external, that someone must die for you to live, that suffering equals holiness. He paused. That was the inversion, the great reversal, because in truth, the divine doesn't want your suffering. It wants your remembering. And I felt that like a tremor in my bones. I had spent years believing my pain was some sort of sacrifice, that maybe if I suffered enough, God would finally hear me, that maybe sorrow was a currency I could use to purchase peace. But now, I was learning, suffering doesn't buy truth. It only delays it. And then, he showed me the grid, a living field of energy that surrounds the planet, not metaphorically, but literally. A frequency net, designed to suppress high vibrations and amplify low ones. Why? I asked. Who would do this? He looked at me, his black eyes reflecting my question right back. Not who, he said. What? Fear. Fear as an intelligence, a force, not evil, but lost. A frequency so distorted it tries to control rather than connect. It fears expansion. It fears awakening. And every time a human starts to remember who they are, the grid pushes back. Through doubt, through distraction, through noise. That's why it's so hard to stay awake. That's why most people fall asleep again. Because remembering requires more than information. It requires energetic commitment. It's not enough to know, he told me. You must embody. And that's when we began the practice. He stood in the center of the barn, asked me to join him, told me to place one hand on my chest, the other on my stomach. Breathe slowly, he said. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Now focus on the space behind your heart. I did. And then he said, speak your origin. I didn't understand. Mean? What do you say who you are? Not your name, not your occupation. Say your frequency. I hesitated. Then I said, I am remembering. He nodded. Again, I am remembering. Again, I am light in form. I am not broken. I am not lost. I am frequency returned. With every word, I felt a pulse in my chest, a vibration not caused by voice, but by truth. He stepped forward, touched my forehead lightly, and in that moment, I saw it. A flash, not of light, of code, patterns, geometries, and out of each other moving in, forming DNA strands made of sound. He said, your spiritual DNA was locked generations ago, but it is unlocking now, not because of me, but because of your willingness. And I wept, because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel human. I felt whole, not special, not chosen, just aware, and that was enough. You don't need permission to remember. he said. You don't need authority to align. You don't need ritual to rise. He paused, then added, Jesus didn't come to. He came to end separation. The vision faded, the light dimmed, and we stood there, two beings from different stars, sharing a truth older than both of us. And I knew this wasn't a story to be told. It was a frequency to be felt. And maybe, just maybe, you're feeling it right now. Maybe something in you is vibrating differently than it was before you clicked this video. Maybe the space behind your heart feels warmer. Maybe the thoughts in your mind have softened. Maybe you've stopped asking if this is true and started asking why you always knew it was. And if that's the case, don't keep it inside. Let this energy move through you. Write something in the comments that doesn't just come from your mind, but from the place that remembers. It could be, I carry the code. I was never separate. Jesus came to end division. I am resonance. Every word you type anchors the frequency. Every comment is an energetic ripple. Every share is a transmission. You're not just watching this. You're part of it, and what's coming next was never meant to be seen. But now, it's time. He didn't speak for a while after that, not because he was finished, but because the next thing he had to show me, I had to ask for. That's how it works, apparently. In these realms, you're never forced to awaken. You must choose it, and choosing it comes at a price. Not money, not suffering, but identity. The version of you that was built from trauma, approval, survival, and fear version doesn't walk into higher frequency. It dissolves, piece by piece, thought by thought, until what's left isn't new, but true. I sat on the floor of the barn, still breathing in that pulse behind my heart, still holding the crystal, still feeling the last words he'd spoken echoing in my skin. Jesus didn't come to start a religion. He came to end separation. And as I sat there, something strange began to happen. It started as a memory, but not mine. I saw a desert. Fingers that weren't slipping through, yet somehow felt familiar. I felt heat, dust, the weight of a linen cloth wrapped around my head. I heard voices, foreign, ancient, and I knew I was remembering something older than this life. I was standing in a crowd, and Jesus was in front of me. Not floating, not glowing, just standing, laughing softly at something someone said. His presence was magnetic, but not because of divinity, because of realness. He looked at people the way most never look, like he saw every version of them at once. The child, the sinner, the wounded, the powerful, the one they buried, the one they were meant to become. And then he looked at me. In this memory, or vision, or whatever it was, he looked at me and nodded. Not like, I know you, like, you remember. My heart pounded, not in fear, in recognition. Back in the barn, my hands were shaking. The air felt charged, like lightning was dancing just outside my skin. The alien stood near the wall, watching me. You're accessing the layers, he said. The ones buried beneath time. I asked him, my voice barely audible. Was I there? He stepped closer. Many of you were, not just once, but across lifetimes. You return again and again to remember what was taken, to rebuild what was broken. I closed my eyes, but the memory remained, stronger now. Jesus walking between crowds, not preaching, but transmitting, saying things that never made it into books. Don't chase the kingdom. Realize you are what the kingdom is made of. You are not a servant. You are the seed. The Father is not above. The Father is within, and the Mother is the earth. Together, you are the child. I opened my eyes. Tears. I wasn't just remembering a man. I was remembering myself. The part of me that always knew the churches didn't tell the full story. The part of me that felt God most when the wind brushed against my face. The part of me that asked questions I was told not to ask. And now, here I was, facing the truth, behind the veil. He, this being, this visitor from the stars, he wasn't giving me answers. He was giving me back my memory. I stood up slowly. What happens now? I asked him. He turned to the ship. The panel began to shift. And then, the final sequence appeared. A map, but not geographic. It was energetic. A web of light lines, intersections between souls, timelines, and frequencies. And in the center of it, a pulse, like a heart, like a signal. This, he said, is the original frequency of not a person, a code. My whole body locked into attention. The man you call Jesus carried this code, he continued, but it did not begin with him, nor does it end with him. He looked at me. It has passed through stars, dimensions, galaxies, through beings of light and form, through languages you've forgotten how to speak, and now It is awakening again. I swallowed hard. In who? In you. The weight of it hit me like a storm I'd waited my entire life to feel. And maybe you. Because if you've made it this far, if something in your chest keeps nodding along, not logically, but spiritually, then maybe this code lives in you too. Maybe that's why the system told you to fear it, to kneel, to obey, to ignore your intuition. Maybe that's why you've always felt different, why the sermons left you hungry, why the prayers always echoed back unanswered. Not because God wasn't listening, but because you weren't speaking in your true voice. And maybe, like me, standing at the edge of remembering something enormous. He turned off the projection. The barn fell into darkness, except for the soft glow of the ship behind him. "You asked why we came," he said. I nodded. Yes. He stepped closer. His eyes, deep black pools, didn't blink. Because humanity is approaching a convergence, a choice between collapsing into artificial identity or rising back into cosmic memory. I could feel it. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about the field, grid, the earth, about how many would be ready, and how many would fight to stay asleep, wrapped in the warm blanket of false narratives and comfortable lies. "What happens if we choose wrong?" I asked, not sure I wanted the answer. He paused. "Then you forget again, and the cycle repeats, until you are ready." He wasn't threatening. He was just telling the truth. But something in me, something ancient, whispered, "Not this time." Because I had felt the frequency. I had remembered the vision. I had tasted the alignment. And now, there was no going back. Not to comfort, not to doctrine, not to doubt. I was either going to rise or fall trying. And maybe that's where you are too. Maybe this story isn't just mine. Maybe you've been seeing numbers, symbols, dreams you can't explain. Maybe you've been feeling something shift, a quickening, a pull to go deeper. Maybe your old beliefs don't fit anymore, but you're afraid to let them go. If that's you, don't walk away in silence. Say something. Anchor it. Type something in the comments that only someone waking up would understand. Something like, "The code is awakening in me. I've seen this before. I choose memory over identity. I was there. I remember." Let your words ripple through the field. Not for me, but for the grid. For those still on the edge. For those waiting for a sign. Be the sign. And what's coming next? It's not just truth. It's the activation. There was a point I thought I had seen it all. The hologram, the ship, the visions of Jesus, the truth behind the silence. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what came next. Because it wasn't another vision. It was me. The alien, who still hadn't spoken his name, brought me to the center of the barn again. But this time, he didn't activate any projection. He didn't explain anything. He just looked at me and said, "You're ready." And I knew what he meant, though I wished I didn't. I wasn't ready to see something. I was ready to become it. He reached into the panel of the ship and removed a small circular disc, about the size of my palm, covered in unfamiliar markings that glowed faint blue. He handed it to me. As soon as it touched my skin, it pulsed, like it recognized me, like I had held it before, in another life, another world. I looked at him, unsure. "What is this?" He answered simply, "Your memory." And before I could ask anything else, the barn disappeared. I wasn't unconscious. I didn't collapse. My body was still, standing, but my awareness had shifted. It was as if the walls had peeled away, revealing something that had always been here, just behind the veil. I was floating, not in space, but in pure intelligence. A vast field, a matrix of light and sound. Colors I couldn't name, geometries moving like music. Everything was alive. Not symbolic, not abstract, literal. This was not a dream. This was the architecture beneath reality, and in front of me appeared myself, but not like a mirror. Version of me wasn't older or younger. He wasn't from the past or the future. He was complete. No fear, no regret, no shame, just presence, stillness, power. He stepped closer, and I felt it, like standing in front of a star made of memory. "You asked why you," he said, with my voice, but clearer. "It was always you, because you made the choice before this life began, to forget everything. And remember anyway." I couldn't speak. I was overwhelmed. My heart raced. My hands trembled. "You're here to awaken," he continued. "You're here to anchor, to embody, to transmit. You are the antenna. You are the cross. The resurrection isn't a story. It's a frequency shift inside the flesh." And then it happened. He walked into me. Not metaphorically, not poetically. He literally merged with me. two consciousnesses collapsing into one, and in that moment, I remembered everything. Every life, every betrayal, every vow, every activation, every time I stood before truth and turned away. Every time I returned again. I saw myself in Egypt, in the temples of sound. I saw myself in Tibet, humming mantras that bent light. I saw myself in Lemuria, before the fall, teaching others how to feel the field. I saw myself in the crowd, watching Jesus walk by, and I knew I had followed him lifetime after lifetime, not to worship, to witness, to remember, and now to continue. Back in the barn, I fell to my knees. My body was vibrating, not shaking, literally resonating. Had become like every cell fork. I could hear my blood. I could see the breath I exhaled in particles of light. I could feel the ground beneath me as part of me. The alien approached slowly. "You've reinstalled the frequency," he said. I turned to him. "Why does it hurt?" He didn't flinch. "Because the version of you that needed to die is dying." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a moment of glory. It was a crucifixion, not of body, of ego. The part of me that always needed proof. The part that feared rejection. The part that worshipped safety more than truth. That version was breaking, and it hurt. Not like a wound, but like a release. Like screaming out the lies I'd believed for too long. Like tearing down the scaffolding of my false identity. Like standing naked in front of the fire and choosing not to run. He placed his hand on my shoulder. "You're not being punished," he said. "You're being purified." And in that moment, I realized this was what they never told us. Resurrection isn't comfortable. That awakening isn't gentle. That light isn't always soft. Sometimes it burns because it has to. Because what lives inside you cannot share a body with illusion forever. One must go, and I chose truth. I chose it through the pain, through the trembling, through the grief of shedding who I wasn't. And as I did, something opened. I don't know how to describe it except to say, the veil inside my chest lifted, and behind it, peace, not silence, deep, not numbness, humming peace, like everything was aligned, like the earth and the stars and my breath were all speaking the same language again. And then I heard it, not a voice, a phrase, from the field itself. It is finished, not because a man had died, but because a false self had. And I understood now, Jesus didn't suffer to prove anything. He surrendered to show what was possible beyond the wound. The Christ wasn't a man. The Christ was a frequency, a template, a memory of our original state, unburdened, untamed. And now I had touched it. No, I had become it. And maybe you feel it too, right now. Maybe your skin is buzzing. Maybe tears are rising. Maybe your heart is pounding, and you don't know why. Maybe your body knows what your mind is still trying to believe, that you're not just watching this. You're in it, because if this message found you, it's because your soul sent for it. So if something inside you has cracked open, even just a little, let it breathe, let it speak, let it say, I choose to die to who I am not. The Christ is not coming. The Christ is awakening in me. I am ready for the veil to lift. It is finished, and it is just beginning. Type what's true for you, even if it scares you, even if it's just one word, even if it's just, I feel it. Let this part of you speak, anchor, transmit. Because what happens next will change everything. The barn was quiet again, still, but the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full, ancient, full of something. Thick like smoke, but made of light. I stood there, breathing it in, trying to hold on to what had just happened. The merging, the remembrance, the death of my old self. But something in me whispered, this isn't the end. Because once you awaken the code, it starts calling you deeper. And deeper always means darker, not in the evil sense, but in the forgotten sense. There are rooms inside us we sealed long ago, chambers of the soul we boarded shut, afraid of what we might find. Monsters, not curses, but truth, and truth can burn if you've built your identity on lies. He, the alien, motioned for me to follow him. No words this time, just a slow walk back toward the ship. I hesitated, not because I didn't trust him, but because I knew wherever we were going next, there'd be no coming back unchanged. We entered the ship, the doors sealed behind us with a soft breath of sound, like the ship itself was alive. Not metal, not machine. More like consciousness. We entered wasn't like before. It was darker, colder, lit only by a single sphere of violet-blue light floating in the center. And inside that light was a structure. At first I thought it was a planet, but as we got closer, I saw the lines, the grids, the symbols. It was Earth, but not the Earth I knew. This was Earth's energetic template, the web that exists beneath the physical, the blueprint. This, he said, breaking the silence, is the original Earth grid, before the inversion, before the interference. I stared at it, hypnotized. It pulsed like a heart, breathing, waiting. What happened to it? I asked. He placed his hand on the edge of the light field. It responded instantly. The image shifted, zoomed in, revealing massive geometrical structures embedded within the Earth's frequency. They looked artificial. These structures, he said, were inserted by non-terrestrial forces long ago, not to destroy Earth, but to enslave its consciousness. I swallowed hard. He looked at me with a softness I didn't expect. Because your species is powerful beyond comprehension, you carry a frequency that can alter timelines, collapse illusions, and restore galactic memory, but only if you remember. He stepped into the projection, now standing inside Earth's energetic grid. They feared what would happen if the Christ code spread, if it activated in enough humans, if it reached critical mass. And then the projection changed again. I saw a timeline split, two versions of Earth overlapping each other, one glowing, free, filled with light, flowing between humans like rivers of gold. No leaders, no temples, no saviors, just coherence. And the other? Dark, mechanical, orderly, controlled, where people weren't people anymore. They were products, programs, prayers said out of fear, not knowing they were feeding the very grid that trapped them. You're living in the overlap, he said. Both timelines still exist. Both vibrate in you, but only one embodied at a time. I turned to him, trembling. Which one is winning? He paused. That depends on you. The ship fell silent again, but inside me, everything screamed. Because now I could see it, not metaphorically, literally. Every time I chose fear, I was feeding the false grid. Every time I believed I was separate, I was reinforcing the lie. Every time I looked for God outside myself, I was agreeing to forget. And maybe so were you. He walked toward me, holding another disc, thinner, smaller, etched with fractals. This is the distortion map, he said. It will show you where the Christ code was hijacked. I held it, and immediately I dropped to my knees. Not from pain, from remembrance. I saw flashes, a council rewriting sacred texts to insert guilt and hierarchy. Light beings silenced, painted as demons in mythologies. Ancient feminine frequencies buried under masculine dogma. Entire lifetimes where I knew the truth but stayed quiet. I began to hoard without sound, tears. Because the pain wasn't personal. It was collective. It was the ache of every soul who ever whispered truth and was crucified for it. And then I saw it. The false light. Bright, seductive, familiar. It looked like holiness. It felt like peace. It even spoke in the language of love. But it was cold underneath. Programmed. Scripted. You've seen it before, the alien said. The false light is more dangerous than darkness, because it pretends to be salvation. I looked up at him, breathless. How do I know the difference? He stepped back and said something I'll never forget. Real light never needs to be obeyed. It only asks to be remembered. That's when I understood. Everything was inverted. They taught us to fear what we should have trusted, to follow what we should have questioned, to worship what we should have embodied. And that's why Jesus was dangerous. Not because of what he said, but because of what he refused to say. He never told anyone to worship him. He told them to remember themselves. And that was the ultimate threat. I stood again, holding the distortion map in one hand and the activation disc in the other. This isn't about belief anymore, I whispered. It's about frequency. The alien nodded. You are not here to convert. You are here to vibrate differently. He walked toward the center of the ship, placed his hand on a panel, and the walls began to shift. Stars appeared, galaxies. But in the middle of all of it, Earth. And from Earth, light was starting to emerge, not from mountains, not from governments, not from temples, but from people, one by one. You, me, all of us. Those remembering, those anchoring, those trembling in the barn, in their bedrooms, in their dreams, feeling something awaken with no words for it yet. We are the network, and that's what they tried to shut down. Because when enough of us hold the code, the field flips. And I believe it's already happening. So if you're still here, still breathing, still wondering why your chest won't stop vibrating, you're not imagining it. You're feeling the map activate inside you. And if that's true, say something. Let your words anchor what you're sensing. Even if it's simple, I reject the false light. I remember the distortion. The Christ code is vibrating in me. I choose truth over comfort. Your voice is a frequency. Let it ripple. Because what's next is the return. The moment the stars surrounded me, something in my chest finally exhaled. Not my lungs, my soul. Like I had been holding my breath for lifetimes, waiting, hoping, wandering through incarnation after incarnation, searching for something I couldn't name. And now, here it was. Not as a voice, not as a vision, but as stillness. I stood inside the ship, watching Earth spin slowly beneath us in the holographic projection. But for the first time, I didn't see a planet. I saw a mirror, and inside that mirror, I saw you, all of us, sparks. The alien turned to me, his expression unchanged, but his energy softened, like he was finally allowing himself to feel what I was feeling. Not detachment, not superiority, just recognition. You've completed the reactivation, he said. You've aligned memory with embodiment. I blinked slowly, letting those words sink in. They weren't just affirmations. They were instructions encoded in every cell. Memory is not enough. Truth must become motion. Belief must become breath. Spirituality become the way you walk, speak, look, love, forgive, and create. And in that moment, I finally understood what Jesus meant by "the kingdom of God is within you." It wasn't poetry, it was physics. He wasn't talking about heaven as a destination, he was talking about a field. And that field is unlocked not by death, but by awareness. That's what this whole journey had been. Not about saving the alien, not even about discovering the real Jesus. It was about remembering what happens when you stop looking outside for permission to awaken and start reclaiming the pieces of yourself that were hidden, forbidden, or forgotten. I turned to him one last time and asked the question I had held back since the beginning. "Will I ever see you again?" He paused. Then he said, "Every time you meet someone and remember their light before their name, I am there." And I wept, not from sadness, from wholeness. He walked toward the door of the ship, and as it opened, light filled the space. Not from outside, but from within. I stepped out into the night air, the barn behind me, the earth beneath me. But something had changed. It wasn't that I had returned to Earth. It was that I was finally present in it, fully. No veil, no fracture, no pretending. The stars above no longer looked like mysteries. They looked like family. And the wind didn't feel empty. It felt like the voice of Source itself, whispering, "Welcome back." I looked at my hands, the same, but different. They no longer carried. They carried signal. From that moment forward, I wasn't just living, I was transmitting. Everywhere I went, the frequency went with me. Every conversation became an opportunity for remembrance. Every silence became sacred. Every pair of eyes became a doorway to eternity. And I knew this isn't a message to be preached. It's a vibration to be held. That's why, even now, as you sit there listening to this, it's not my words reaching you. It's the part of you that's been waiting to be spoken to and spoken through. You're not just the witness of this story. You are the continuation of it. And if anything in this journey stirred something in you, a memory, a warmth, a question, a tear, then you're not alone. You've been guided here by something far greater than an algorithm. Call it grace, call it fate, call it the Christ frequency in action. It doesn't matter. What matters is that now, you know there's more. You know you're more. To make followers, you know Jesus wasn't trying. He was trying to awaken creators. And you are one of them. So as we close this chapter, not with finality, but with reverence, I want to thank you. Not just for watching, but for feeling, for remembering, for saying yes when it would have been easier to scroll past. And if your heart is still open, if your hands are still warm, if your breath has shifted even slightly from the moment this began, then let's not stop here. There's one more step, one more code, revelation waiting, one more, and it's in the next video, right here, on the screen. Ready? Click it when you're ready to go deeper. But don't do it for me. Do it for you, for the part of you that never forgot, for the timeline that's calling you forward. And before you go, if this journey meant something to you, even one sentence, one breath, one heartbeat, let the field know. Write something in the comments like, "I am the transmission now. I walk with the Christ code. This story is mine too. We'll never see the world the same again. Let those words echo across the grid. Let others find them. Let them find you. Because the time of waiting is over, and the time of remembering has only just begun.